And then, yeah, for stream, we will continue with watching the trailers. Let me. Okay, cool. Volume seems good. I'll just keep my face there. Screw it. Yeah, I can imagine you were hyped when this dropped. I had no hype because I hadn't played the whole series yet. I didn't even know this dropped 3 years ago.
Is anyone receiving this? We've lost contact. Anomaly readings all across space.
This is so cool looking, though. Space is so cool. Okay. Some snowy place. Look at that. What is that? Oh, and 7. Oh, is that Liara? Mass Effect will continue. Oh, I didn't catch it. I'm walking on a dead Reaper. Let me go back. I wonder where this is. Oh, yeah, I can tell now. I thought she was just, like, walking up a mountain. Wait, what did that ship say? Ah. XT8? XTS? I don't really know what that means. But that looks like a Krogan. That looks like a Solarian. I can't tell what that is, if that's just a human. Ooh, yeah. I could see that hyping you up, especially because, like, you know, Mass Effect Andromeda comes out, and it's like not like it's basically a spin-off. It's in the same universe, but it's like completely different characters. But then this drops, and there's an actual character that you recognize from the trilogy. I could see that being absolutely hype. It's only 34 seconds. Okay. Gameplay not final. Okay, that's a dope looking outfit. Someone had 7. Is that it? Who is that? Okay, so whew, I guess that's all we get. Um Nobody knows, yeah. Alright. Well, I'm gonna be many think it's the return of Shepard. Yeah, maybe. It definitely doesn't have like I don't know which version of Shepard is canon. I could see that, I guess, being like a slim male. It looked like it looked like a feminine build, but I could see it being like a bit of a slimmer male build. Maybe Shepard lost a bunch of weight. Impossible to say for sure. Dude, that's a dope looking design. Oh my god. I believe this is the female, but yeah. I know a lot of people swear by FemShep and uh, what's her name? Uh, Jennifer Hale's voice. I seem to hear a lot more praise for FemShep than MaleShep, so I mean I could see them going with FemShep just being the canon shep. I thought MaleShep's voice was great. I agree they're both good. I'm just going by what I hear people say more. And I've been watching other people do playthroughs who have chosen FemShep, and I think FemShep's voice actors is excellent too. So like, I'm not saying that like I don't like male Sheps. I think is it. Also like the fact that he also voices the Vorcha and he voices, you know, what Niftu Cal was it? Like the guy's got a crazy range because the Vorcha doesn't sound anything like Shepard. Uh, but yeah, no, that's pretty cool. I'm hyped now too, and I'm gonna be looking out for more. Oh, so page down, just scroll down in the comments as it was also because my hotkey for that is page down. I like this comment. 100% Blasto here to save us all. Yes, good one. Yo, what is up? Hello, Pathos. How's it going? Welcome on in, everybody. How's the music volume sound compared to my voice? Hope it's decent. Found a balance is fine, sweet. Found a 10-hour long loop of the galaxy map exploration theme, and I'm like, yeah, that seems pretty fitting. But yeah, gonna be doing a little squad mate tier list here. We got all the squad mates that you can. My cursor's showing. My cursor is not showing. It should be. Ah, there it is. Maybe a hair lower on the music. Okay, here we go. We'll try that. There, now the cursor's showing up. Okay, yeah, I guess first off though, I don't know. I don't exactly know how long this stream is gonna take. I don't have a crazy long time before work, but I just kind of, after thinking of my thoughts were so jumbled yesterday after I beat the game, I needed a little bit of time to sit on it, and I kind of wanted to chat about just my thoughts on the entire trilogy and a unofficial, I guess, kind of ranking of how I think of the games and their strengths and weaknesses. I guess we'll start with Mass Effect 1. I really like Mass Effect 1. I think that game still holds really strong even by today's standards. What is it, 2007? I think that for a 2007 game, it is quite ahead of its time in terms of the writing and stuff like that. Gameplay is definitely its weakest part, but I still think it's pretty passable. I've been rewatching a couple playthroughs of it, and like, I will say the grenades are fucking awful though. That's the one thing that's just like, yeah, I don't know what they were thinking with those weird, stupid little discus throws that just go completely straight. Grenades aside, gameplay is pretty passable. They improve it significantly in the future games, but there are a couple things that I think Mass Effect 1 does best in the series though, and one of them I think is Saren still is my favorite villain of the entire trilogy. I think that he feels so much more, I guess, direct and present than just the Reapers in general, and even like the Elusive Man. Even though I do quite like the Elusive Man as a villain, he's still, most of the time, he's just like, in his little place that you have no idea where he's at, and you're just talking to him through video things and stuff. I don't know. Saren feels a lot more like an actual rival that you have to go and track down and take down. I don't know. He's my favorite villain still. The Reapers make for really good like forces of nature that you have to find a way to stop, but they don't make for like amazing, like, I don't know, personable might be the wrong word. I don't know. They're not like, they're good villains, but they're less of a character and more of just a force of nature. You don't really get to know them. They're especially like, with the reveal at the end of Mass Effect 3 that they are really just there to continue to cleanse the cycle of hatred between organics and synthetics and, reset the, I guess, status quo or whatever. They're not really like their own agents. But yeah, I don't know. Saren is still just like up there for me as like top tier villain. Let me readjust this. And then another thing that I think Mass Effect 1 does really well, probably better than the other two, is it feels like it has the most complete ending. I like the ending of Mass Effect 2. I like the ending of Mass Effect 3. I'll get to it when I talk about Mass Effect 3 more. There's still some parts that I'm a little confused on, but I don't know. Mass Effect 1, I think, does a great job of, it has its own storyline for just Mass Effect 1 and, tracking down Saren, and it ties that up in a nice little bow, and like, you have your own, self-contained climactic stuff with Sovereign attacking the Citadel and all that stuff, and you have to stop Saren, and how you can talk him down or, actually fight him yourself. But it's able to have that self-contained story, wrap it all up in a nice little bow, but then still leave room for like there's still further threats for Mass Effect 2 and 3. There's still like more story after this. I don't know. I really like the I just really like the ending of I think Mass Effect 1 has my favorite, like, just most satisfying, maybe is a better word than favorite, most satisfying ending. It just feels like it kind of wraps everything up nice. I think I'm talking in circles now, so I'll just move on. In terms of let's more into the gameplay side of things. Oh yeah, overall writing is really high quality, even Mass Effect 1. I think some of the characters are more boring for sure. Garrus is a perfect example. I thought Garrus was actually kind of boring in Mass Effect 1. It's not until Mass Effect 2 and 3 where he really starts coming out as like one of my favorite characters. So that might just be like a natural consequence of like this is their first game. They don't have like you don't have the time with them to have them develop and stuff like that. But even then, Rex was like immediately interesting. So, who knows? Either way, story and quest writing I thought was quite good. Still a whole lot of some of the side quests I feel like could have got a little overwhelming. There's a lot of just like they streamlined it in Mass Effect 2 and 3 where there still are side quests, but they feel a little bit more significant and they feel a little bit less just like do this completely random thing that Shepard, who's trying to stop Saren and the Reapers, would never do. Like, oh hey, let's just sidetrack and I don't know. Some of the side quests I will say are like really well integrated, like a lot of the stuff involving Cerberus and whatever your background is. Like I had, the Sole Survivor on a Aku's thing, and that tied in really nicely with Cerberus, which then tied in future games with, I think it was Caden was trying to be like, dude, remember Cerberus is the one that, caused Aku's and all that stuff. So I will say some of the side quests are super well integrated, but there's some kind of like oh gosh, what's the one I'm thinking of? The chick who has to who asks you to like take out those two crime lords, and then she becomes the new crime lord, and then you can talk her down. I don't know. I don't remember that really having. I remember you meet her in the afterlife if you talk her down on you meet her in Afterlife on Omega, but like that's kind of it, and it's like it just feels like completely random and pointless. I don't know. There's stuff like that. Some of the side quests in Mass Effect 1 are, quite good. Some of them are quite, why the heck am I doing this? And then, yeah, now I'll get into gameplay. I wanted to touch on writing a bit more. Gameplay is, like I said, still pretty passable. I will say the Mako driving sections are a really big mixed bag. On one hand, I enjoy driving the Mako, but on the other hand, oh my god, the environments that they force you to drive through, especially when it's not like a main mission thing, are just like, why were they so crazy variation in elevation? They could have, I don't know if they procedurally generated, I don't know exactly how they made it, but I feel like if they turned the slider for like minimum and maximum elevation down like 50%, and then they shrunk the map size of all the planets you could drive around on by 50%, that would have made it so much better. But trying to get to some of those like hidden minerals to survey, or like a matriarch writing or whatever random stuff on the map, and then having to drive through just the worst type of topography imaginable to try to get there, it got quite old. I still did most of them. I think I was only missing one Solarian data pad by the end of it because I just couldn't bring myself to keep doing it. So I didn't hate it. It didn't make me want to pull my hair out, but like it just like, I don't know what they were thinking there. They could have made that a lot better, especially with like the Legendary Edition. That's something that you could easily just be like, hey, I don't think people like this, or like this just doesn't feel good in playtesting. Let's just kind of streamline a little bit. Oh gosh, what else was I gonna say? Once I discovered the controls for like being able to like aim independent of your steering, it made it so much better. I think trying to aim with the mouse and that also controlling your steering at the same time was, I don't think that should be on by default. That's an awful way to drive the Mako. But other than that, I think the Mako is pretty fun. It's especially satisfying shooting your big cannon and watching bodies fly and ragdoll around. It's something that I kind of missed about the Hammerhead. The shooting and combat on the Mako was a lot more fun. And then in terms of like environments that you could go around in, anything that was not a like main story quest environment was just kind of like copy pasted boring stuff. Every sort of building that you go out or go into in the middle of, I don't know, some planet, and it's just the same corridors with the same boxes stacked up for cover and all that stuff. it got a little boring after a while. You know, another downside of Mass Effect 1. And then a lot of you know, all I have is experience with Vanguard, so I can't really speak on the other ones, but Vanguard was so much less interesting in Mass Effect 1 than it was in 2 and 3. Like, the lack of biotic charge, it makes a huge difference. And really only having, like, lift and... I never like... Maybe someone who's like way more experienced at the game knows that warp is actually the most overpowered ability because you can do whatever with it. I don't know. It wasn't that fun for me though. It's just like, it seemed to me, I was like, here's some slight damage over time, and I'm just like, eh. But I will say there was few things that were more hilarious than at the end of Mass Effect 1 when I had the explosive bullets on my shotgun and I was just ragdolling everything, even Saren at the end. That was pretty hilarious. And I like how they kind of streamlined it and made it so you have class specific ammo stuff, but I also kind of miss a little bit being able to put whatever ammo you want on whatever gun, including explosive bullets. It added a lot of fun. Yo, what's up, Sky? Good afternoon. How you doing? Now I'm done with Mass Effect 3. I'm just having some extended thoughts, and I'm going to do a squad mate tier list. I'm pretty sure you haven't played Mass Effect, so, you know, if you care about spoilers, you might not want to stick around. If you don't care about spoilers, then I'm going to be definitely spoiling shit. So just a fair warning about all three games. Anyway, yeah, that's kind of all my thoughts on Mass Effect 1. It's still a really solid game. I think it holds up really well for how old it is. And I know a lot of people, both in chat and people I know in real life and people in YouTube comments, are like, oh, cool thing about that interactive comic in Mass Effect 2 is you can make your choices there so you don't have to play Mass Effect 1 and stuff like that. And I definitely see the appeal, and maybe one day I'll be like, yeah, I just want to get right into Mass Effect 2. But for now, I definitely don't feel like I want to skip Mass Effect 1. I think it does a lot right, especially on the writing side. So yeah, that's kind of sums up my thoughts on Mass Effect 1. I'd still say it's definitely my least favorite of the three, just because Mass Effect 2 and 3 elevate the bar so much. But yeah, I mean, still really solid game. And then on to Mass Effect 2, which I know a lot of people consider their favorite in the trilogy, and I'd have to really think hard on whether or not I think Mass Effect 2 or 3 is better, because there's some things that I think Mass Effect 2 does better, but then there's other things I think Mass Effect 3 does better. But yeah, let's I guess just get into the writing. Really just fantastic stuff all around. The twists and turns in the plot, especially in the opening where you literally die and then get resurrected by frickin' Cerberus of all people, which, if you know, you get a lot of evidence in the first game as long as you're exploring and paying attention that Cerberus is a shady as fuck group, and then they find you and resurrect you and you have to work for them. It's just a crazy like twist on the plot, and I really love it whenever a story does some sort of time skip or some sort of thing where you and from your perspective, like you've been away from the world doing something, or literally like in a coma or whatever for however long, and the world has changed and you don't know what the status quo is anymore and you have to go relearn it. That's just, I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff in stories. Like the anime time skip is a classic example. So I really like the opening of 2 for that. In terms of squadmate stuff, I'll go into this more specifically when we get to the actual squadmate tier list, but I really enjoy all of the new squadmates that they added. But I also really kind of like how in Mass Effect 3 they streamlined it a bit and there's not quite as many. In some ways, I think Mass Effect 2 had a little bit too many to juggle and couldn't, especially like Zaid and Kasumi. I like Kasumi quite a bit. Zaid, just, I don't know, maybe I just didn't get to know him well enough, but he wasn't that interesting to me. Jacob wasn't that interesting to me. There's in certain ways I think they might have tried to just add too much. Is this the Mass Effect trilogy waifu tier list? No, it's I mean, I might be talking about a little bit of that, but this is just all the people you can have on your squad. Oh yeah, gameplay of 2. Huge improvement over Mass Effect 1. And if you remember watching my first video for Mass Effect 2, I kind of don't remember exactly what I did, but I very much remember like doing some sort of like praise the Lord kind of gesture when I noticed that they added being able to vault over cover, which seems like such a small thing, but that tiny little addition improves the flow of the gameplay so much. Because another downside I guess you could say about Mass Effect 1 that I didn't mention, but it ties in really well with this, is cover system for that game was super, like the combat movement system in general was just super clunky. You gotta like press yourself up against the cover, and then you gotta like move back away from it to get out of the cover, and there's no way to vault over cover, so you're just always having to step back away from the wall, and just having a dedicated cover button and then also being able to vault over cover is such a small but like crazy improve. Like it just improves the flow of the game so much more. Like I just can't understand. I can't understate how much that tiny little thing improved the gameplay for me. It's really solid. It's excusable being the first game. Well, yeah, I know that. I'm not saying like this Mass Effect 1 is garbage because of this one thing. I get it's excusable, but like, you know, this is just a thoughts on the entire trilogy, so that's one of the thoughts. Like it's a really big improvement that Mass Effect 2 made. Next thing I want to jump to is the Hammerhead, because good lord, I hate the Hammerhead even more than the Mako, which I don't know if that's a hot take or not. But to jump to Mass Effect 3 real quick, I will say one of my favorite things about that game is that they didn't try to shoehorn in another type of vehicle that you have to drive. They just cut that out. They're like, this isn't one of our strengths, so let's not even add it. The Hammerhead, I thought I would like it more when I saw it because it's like the hover thing, but for some reason, even though it hovers, it still gets stuck on geography all the fucking time. And you're like driving and you just like, I don't know, hit some rock and it like stopped your whole vehicle. But the real thing that pisses me off so much about the Hammerhead is that god awful noise they added when you're done scanning something. What were they possibly thinking adding that noise? The most obnoxious ear bleed noise I think I've ever heard in my life. The volume is way too high for it. That sounds like something that should only play if you fail like a scan, but it plays when you do a successful one as well. Like, honest to God, that might be like one of the worst decisions they went through in this entire trilogy. Hearing that noise in playtesting, like choosing that when, I don't know how game development is made, but someone somewhere chose that noise for scanning. Other people had to hear it and then accepted it and you know, said, yep, this works. It's just something went horribly wrong there. I loathe that. Oh my God, that noise drove me absolutely insane. And that's kind of like, if you take that noise out, I think the Mako and the Hammerhead are pretty even in terms of like how frustrating they are just to drive. You add that noise in, the Hammerhead is like miles worse than the Mako for me. And then yeah, gunplay and shooting, Vanguard specific stuff. Vanguard has been improved so much more since Mass Effect 1. Biotic Charge alone just kind of makes that class what it is. You're supposed to be the up-close biotic warrior that, you know, fucks people up with a shotgun, and you really don't get to do that in Mass Effect 1 unless you just, like, run up to people, but, like, Biotic Charge just feels so natural. Cryo bullets, fire bullets, both are fun in their own way. I preferred fire overall just because, you know, more immediate damage, and I'm, you know, I'm simple like a Krogan. I just like big guns that do big numbers. So I preferred incendiary ammo, but I can't deny that cryo ammo was quite good. And then based on some of the other abilities I've seen, either through watching some other playthrough or having squad mates that do it, they all seem just way more improved compared to Mass Effect 1. The abilities in general are just a lot more fleshed out, and I've already mentioned the cover stuff. That's so much better. I'm trying to think of what else to specifically talk about. I mentioned a little bit how in Mass Effect 1, the side quests being like, some of them being pretty good and some of them being like, why am I doing this? I like how in Mass Effect 2 they streamlined a lot of the side quests a bit more. There's a lot more, I guess, finding things naturally as you go along the story, and then that can like complete a side quest. And the first thing my mind goes to is Ilium, where, you know, here's a lady talking on the phone and she's talking about her oh god, what was it, like dead husband's medal or dog tags or something that she wanted. Another Solarian talking on the phone talking about the genetic data that he needs, and you know, you can overhear them talking about that kind of stuff. And then throughout various missions that you do, you just naturally find that stuff and have to bring it back. And it's simple, it works, it's not a huge deviation from what you're already doing, and there's not a whole lot of like, you know, you got to go around and explore for like resources and stuff, but that doesn't take too long. And it's actually kind of, you know, I didn't mind the scanning for resources thing. It was super satisfying hearing the resources like tick up when you find a big spike. It sounded like a Geiger counter, so I didn't mind that stuff. But either way, just like the flow of how you're moving around the world and the story was more streamlined. There were side quests, but all the side quests kind of like flowed with what you're doing in the main story better than Mass Effect 1 did, and I like that quite a lot. Companion writing, I touched on this a little bit. I like every and yeah, I'll touch on this more, like I said, with when we get to the actual tier list. But yeah, I like every squad mate that they added for the most part in Mass Effect 2. Like I said a little bit, Jacob and Zaid aren't super interesting to me. I feel like, you know, they probably, I don't know, there's not, even then I still like those two. There's not real, this is hard to say because when I mention stuff like this, it's like I feel like there's a little bit of bloat, but at the same time I have no idea what to cut because I can't look at any of these characters and be like, yeah, I want to cut you. So it's always hard to like consider stuff like that. So I'll just move on to the general, I guess, story, which the whole premise of Mass Effect 2, and I can see why it's people's favorite, even though I think in terms of main quest I still prefer Mass Effect 3 and even Mass Effect 1 because I really just enjoy the hunt for Saren. I can't get over how much I like Saren as a villain. He's just so cool. The fellow rival Spectre, you being the first human Spectre and him kind of being racist towards humans and stuff like that. I don't know, it just makes for a great villain that none of the other two games captured quite as well. But a lot of really cool lore drops in 2 with the collectors. The collectors seemed at first to kind of come out of nowhere, but then the learning that they're Protheans that have been controlled and taken over by the Reapers and indoctrinated for so long that they've essentially changed into a new species was pretty wild. And there's no better way to, like, you know, introduce them as a threat than to just have them destroy the Normandy SR1 and kill Shepard and, you know, kill a whole bunch of other people, and everyone else who is alive barely escaped. So they got set up as a villain, as a threat really well. And then I think the coolest thing about Mass Effect 2, even though I didn't personally experience this because not too many things went wrong, but just how many things can go wrong if you're not paying attention or if you're not doing all of the optional stuff that you should be. Like if you're ignoring ship upgrades, you're gonna get fucked up in the you know, suicide mission if you're ignoring squad loyalty missions, or if you're not even paying attention to their personal strengths and their personalities and stuff like that, then you're going to lose people and get people killed. And, you know, even I had a blunder. I did the Reaper IFF probably a little sooner than I should have. And then, you know, I still had a bunch of loyalty missions and side quests to do before I could do the final mission, and that ended up making it so that Kelly Chambers and you know, pretty much every support crew on the Normandy aside from Chakwas died. So even I didn't get through it perfect. And I really love when a game has consequences like that. And it's also like the way to make it through isn't just hit some arbitrary. I much prefer the way Mass Effect 2 does it than Mass Effect 3, like hitting the war readiness counter or war assets counter is just like, you know, an arbitrary bar that you see, and like you can see, okay, now I'm fully ready, but like you have to make a lot more active decisions in Mass Effect 2 that really test your knowledge of these characters and, you know, their abilities and their personality and stuff like that. And a good example is I had no idea how exactly the specific mechanics work in terms of how the game decides if someone lives or dies, but Grunt and Grunt and Legion for the longest time were my two favorite squad mates to bring on missions as soon as I unlock Legion. Legion is like, you know, just the long range perfect sniper, and Grunt is, you know, a tank frontline soldier with me with a shotgun. But in that final door defense, I decided to leave Grunt behind because I felt Grunt would be better suited for, you know, defending against a large force like that, and I brought Tali with me instead, Tali and Legion, and then you know, Pathos told me afterwards how all the mechanics work, and apparently Tali and Legion are really low priority for the door defense. Like, they don't add a whole lot of strength, but Grunt adds a whole lot, so it ended up being a really good decision, and that was just made based off of my own logic. Same with Thane. Thane is really low strength level for that door defense, apparently. And I sent him to go escort Dr. Chakwas back to Normandy because I felt he's a person who's used to operating solo, operating in the shadows, you know, avoiding confrontation and striking only when the opportunity presents himself. So I figured he would be one of the best candidates for taking Dr. Chakwas out of there. Garrus, as the leader of Squad 2, just felt like a perfect fit because he has experience leading his own squad and stuff like that. Samara as the, you know, biotic barrier, because like her and Jack, I was deliberating between her and Jack, and apparently her and Jack are the only two you can pick. If you try to go with like Miranda or Jacob or whatever, they're gonna die. And I don't know, they're set up as like the strongest biotics. especially Samara with her. Jack, I think, has more raw power, but Samara with the experience and stuff, it like all that stuff is like just makes sense when you're thinking about the characters and their abilities and what they're good at. But for someone who is just kind of like rushing their way through the game and bumbling their way through and not really paying attention to anything, even if they do the loyalty missions because they just like, you know, tick off all the content boxes, if they're really not paying attention, they're just like, oh yeah, Jacob's a biotic, he can handle the biotic shield thing, and then someone dies because of that. Or, oh yeah, Grunt and Garrus have been my two favorite to bring all the time, so I'm going to keep using them even at the final thing, and they're not there for the door defense, and then someone dies there. It's just like there's a lot of ways that you have to not only be a little bit of a completionist as far as the gameplay goes, but you also have to just be paying attention to the characters. And I think that was excellently crafted. I can't praise it enough. Even like the ship upgrades too. I've seen a couple play. After I beat the suicide mission, I had to go and watch a whole bunch of other people's playthroughs. Not like just skip straight to the suicide mission and just see how they did it. And there's like a few people who didn't think the ship upgrades mattered at all and didn't get them. And then you get people killed immediately if you don't do that too. I think most people I saw realized those must be important for something and did get them, but I saw a couple that didn't. So I just, there's so many ways that things can go wrong and pretty specific things you have to do to make sure everything goes right, and I wasn't even able to make things all go right. And I can't praise the level of intricacies, I suppose is the right way to say it, for that stuff more. And that's kind of all I can think of for Mass Effect 2. Any more specifics is just not coming to mind right now. And then on to Mass Effect 3, like I said at the start of the Mass Effect 2 thing, it's really hard for me to decide on whether or not I like Mass Effect 3 or 2 more. Everything that Mass Effect 2 set up, I think Mass Effect 3 did a really good job, I guess, concluding. All the stuff that is set up with Mordin and, you know, his genophage modification and Malon's research data and stuff like that is beautifully wrapped up in Mass Effect 3 with him sacrificing himself to cure the genophage. Everything involving Legion and Tally. Oh, I didn't even realize they were above and below each other. That's pretty fitting. All the setup between the Quarians and the Geth in Mass Effect 2 and meeting Legion, and Legion just, you know, rocking my fucking world in terms of like understanding of the Geth, was then paid off beautifully in Mass Effect 3, where you get to go see the Geth's consensus and actually see the true history of how they were created and how the Quarians kind of fucked them over unjustifiably. And then everything, you know, at least in terms of my playthrough, I was able to resolve it amicably and get, you know, get peace between the Quarians and Geth. Everything involving like the Protheans and their history, and then being wiped out. And I know he's a DLC character, which is like crazy because he feels so just naturally well integrated. But everything involving the Protheans and their history with the Reapers and kind of their history is like I love the dynamic between Liara and Javik. Liara is like, you know, looks up to the Protheans, and so many people in the civilization these days look up to the Protheans and revere them as like some ancient, wise, beyond their means civilization with profound knowledge. And then Javik shows up and he's kind of a little bit of a dick and kind of shatters Liara's perception on what the Protheans were. But he's a justifiable dick. I mean, he watched his whole species die. But I love how I feel like I'm getting a little bit too much into stuff that I should save for the tier list. Anyway, there's not too much more I could say on the gameplay side of Mass Effect 3. They do make some more improvements, I think, on the gameplay. I like the like squad mate abilities you can get. Instead of like a loyalty mission, it's more like, you know, through talking to them and stuff, you're gonna get their ability. And funny enough, Arya's was my favorite. Flare was so good. There's even more weapons you can use in Mass Effect 2. You can upgrade them even, you know, and customize them even more, which I like. I miss the heavy weapons. I loved being able to experiment with all the different kinds of heavy weapons you can get in Mass Effect 2. I will say that's a little bit of a step back in terms of Mass Effect 3's gameplay. The difficulty, I think I ticked it up a tier, but even beyond that, I just feel like they stepped up the difficulty even more. Like, bullets rip you apart even quicker, and then cover isn't like fully protective. One thing that bugged me about Mass Effect 1 and 2 is you could be crouching behind cover and your head, like I don't know, here's the end of the cover, and your head is still like full on sticking above it. But like the game just treats that as arbitrarily like full protection. In Mass Effect 3, they changed it to where like, nah, if people have like the high ground and can look over your cover, they can still shoot you, and I think that was a really welcome change. As far as the general like writing of the story goes, I mentioned it a little bit with like the Quarians and the Geth and the Protheans and the genophage cure and stuff like that. Really excellent writing overall. In terms of the, I don't know, I love the escalation of the stakes. It's never felt more, I guess, threatening than in Mass Effect 3. They did an excellent job of showing just how devastating a war on this scale would be, like an extinction level threat. You have Earth in ruins. You go to you get to the Palaven's moon, and you see Palaven from the distance. That's just a smoking ruin. You see Thessia fall, and every time you go to the Citadel, every new time you go to the Citadel after a major story, it changes, and there's more refugees there. And like every time you go back to Huerta Memorial Hospital, there's more. There's not enough capacity in the hospital rooms, so they just have people like on stretchers in the hallway and stuff like that, and like it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse, and it's really sad to see, but it's like pretty realistic in terms of how something like this would go. There's like the refugee camp in dock whatever it was just keeps getting more and more packed, and everything just gets more and more desperate. The emotional roller coasters I went on, I didn't cry at all in Mass Effect 2, but Mass Effect 3 brought me to tears multiple times. Morden's death, unfortunately, I was spoiled on. But then you have Legions, you have Thanes, you have Anderson's, like, ooh, man, that really got me. That one, like, all the other ones that I mentioned just now, like, my eyes got a little wet. But, like, Anderson's, I actually, like, shed some tears over. I don't know if it was noticeable on camera, but Anderson's death hit me really, really freaking hard. And even the times when people weren't dying, there's still some just emotional gut punches. All the conversations you have with your squad or like former squad mates when you're on Earth right before the final mission. Like Grunt's little Shepherd, thanks for getting me out of that tank. Oh, that hit me so hard. And then Javik's conversation with, he touches his memory shard and then talks about the people, like his squad mates that he had to kill because they got controlled by the Reapers and stuff like that. And then it just got me thinking about like, what if we had to do that with our squad? That one hit me really hard. I just gotta pray, and a lot of this, you have to praise Mass Effect 2 and 1 for 2 specifically, because a lot of these characters that made me cry I knew specifically from 2, but even Mass Effect 1 with like Anderson and stuff, you have to praise those games too, because without their setup for like how wonderful these characters are, they never would have had like an emotional gut punch in 3. But I don't know, even Javik is like, we met him in Mass Effect 3 and he still made me misty-eyed and stuff like that. And that's part of why I feel like, I don't know, that's part of what makes me think Mass Effect 3 might be my favorite, because just anything that just has writing good enough to bring me to tears is a pretty fucking good writing as far as I'm concerned. And then the ending, I still don't really know what to think of the ending. I liked it, and of course I only saw one ending. I still haven't looked up the others. I want to eventually. Some of them I want to save for like a future playthrough, but I might look up some. So I only saw my ending, and I like it. I like how, you have a whole bunch of choices, and I think the ending is supposed to be open ending, and it's not supposed to tie everything up in a nice little bow. So that's not a complaint. But there's still some things that I'm a little confused on, and some things that feel a little unsatisfying, like the catalyst being kid we saw die on Earth. Like, I still don't know why it took the form of that kid. I don't know if it's something I missed, a detail I missed, or if it's like it just takes the shape of something that is important to Shepard. I have no idea. That part was still weird to me. The whole reveal that like actually this is just some plan from the Reapers aren't actually like evil. They're just like tools, and this is all just a plan because to reset the status quo, essentially, because humans and synthetics will always fight each other kind of stuff. It seemed like it kind of came out of nowhere. I don't know if there was enough proper build up. I guess you could say that just the whole Quarian and Geth plotline in general was build up for that, which I guess it was, but even then, like, we kind of proved that they don't always have to fight each other. I'm a little mixed on the ending. I liked it, but there's still some things that confuse me, and maybe replaying the game and getting a new perspective and stuff like that will help me with that. You know, we'll just have to wait and see. And then if I had to rank, if, you know, gun to my head, and if I had to rank them, I don't know, this might be recency bias, but I do think still Mass Effect 3 is my favorite. Just, you know, all the emotions, you know, the climactic finale, the proper raising of the stakes, and just seeing the galaxy come, Shepard being able to bring the galaxy together, it was just all really beautiful to see. And then if this is Mass Effect 3, like Mass Effect 2 is like just a hair under it. Mass Effect 2 is the next favorite. And then, you know, maybe down here, definitely more of a gap, but not that big of a gap, would probably be Mass Effect 1. So yeah, there's 45-ish or 40 minutes of, you know, extended thoughts that I couldn't really think of yesterday when I've just finished the game. But yeah, those are kind of like my overall thoughts on the trilogy, and then I guess now we can get into the tier list. Shepherded the galaxy together. Yep, we were the galactic shepherd. It's a nice little bow. All right, so I guess now we'll just jump into the tier list. I got all the squad mates here, and this tier list, when I found it, was missing something. This tier list did not include the GOAT, Jenkins, so I added him. But other than that, I changed the order to where I got everyone in... Actually, I'm pretty sure I met Rex before Garrus. I got the order of people in, you know, roughly when I met them. I can't remember the exact time I met them, but, you know, this is roughly it. Nah, not Leroy Jenkins. But, you know, Leroy Jenkins ain't got nothing on him. And then, yeah, you know, Jenkins is the GOAT, our tried and true first squad mate. Sadly died before he could do anything, but, you know, if he survived, he would have just been a monster. So we're going to add a new tier, and we're gonna name this Jenkins tier, and Jenkins goes in Jenkins tier. So yeah, rest in peace to the GOAT. We barely got to know him, but, you know, just look at that smile. It's undeniable. Anyway, Caden. Let's go on to Caden. I'm going to say Caden's a solid... I don't know. I might... If this was Mass Effect 1, I'd probably put him C tier, but I really like his development in Mass Effect 2 and 3 in terms of, like, you know, he doesn't really trust you fully. Until you have, like, because you're working with Cerberus now, you're just, and, like, it's a pretty realistic, you know, pretty understandable motivation. He's, you know, you're just gone for 2 years, and then all of a sudden you're working with Cerberus, which he knows is super seedy, and you should have more bad blood between them. And sorry, my face is cut, like, Jack is over here, my face is covering her up, and my face, I was trying to find a good spot, and that's kind of like the best I got. I suppose I could probably actually move it up here. I guess we don't really need to see the gears. That could be better. Now we can see everyone's face. But yeah, you know, he just kind of doesn't trust us for pretty reasonable reasons, and then kind of realizes he's wrong, and that, like, you know, Shepard's the dude. At least, you know, if you keep going the Paragon route. Obviously, keep in mind, these are just my first impressions on these characters based off of my first playthrough and what I did with them and how I got to know them. So there's going to be, I know there's so many more layers between these characters, especially if you romance them. So I still don't know the ins and outs of these characters. Just keep that in mind. These are just first impressions based off of my first playthrough. But yeah, his development into, you know, someone who's with you to the beginning, distrusts you for pretty reasonable reasons in the middle, and then goes back to being, you know, a really loyal squad mate by the end. You know, I just really like that. Other than that, though, you know, he's not nearly as exciting as some of the, like, super amazing characters, so he just stays in B tier. And then Ashley, yeah, she's going straight to D. I could not stand her in Mass Effect 1, and who knows, as far as I know, if you let her live on Vermeer and she goes into Mass Effect 2 and 3, maybe she has the best character development ever and changes and becomes just the most amazing character, and if you romance her, she just is super incredible. Maybe, I don't know. But for my personal experience with her in Mass Effect 1, I could not stand her. She just, and it's not even like the subtle racism thing, because honestly I think that's pretty realistic, and I think like when you first discover a species and the first thing you discover about the species, or the first thing you do in terms of an interaction with that species, is to go to war with them, like with the humans and Turians in the First Contact War. I think that is completely natural that there's going to be some bad blood. Like even Anderson has some bad blood between the Turians. Like it's something that's pretty reasonable, and I like to meme about like, oh, you know, the whole racism thing, but like that's honestly not why I dislike her so much. The reason I dislike her so much is because every fucking time she opened her mouth in Mass Effect 1, it was just to be a whiny little bitch, or like she got super jealous of Liara for no fucking reason, because I wasn't pursuing Liara as a I wasn't pursuing either of them as a romance, and yet for some reason Ashley got jealous of Liara, as if Liara was encroaching on her territory with me or something like that. You know, I couldn't have any sort of conversation. I couldn't, like, you know, look at the Liara was helping us understand the conduit and stuff like that and the visions, and then Ashley would just chime in like, can we just like get going or something, like, oh, we're wasting it, like, just every time she just opened her mouth it was just to bitch about something. I just couldn't stand her. She was so frustrating to listen to. And yeah, so she's a D tier squad mate to me. No regrets letting her die. I do want to, obviously in future playthroughs, let her live and see how she might develop. So this might change significantly. I have no idea, but as far as impressions for Mass Effect 1, not strong. And then Rex. I think Rex deserves an easy S tier. He was unlike a lot of, you know, squad mates for Mass Effect 1 who kind of like took a while to get interesting. Rex was immediately interesting. I loved how he was, you know, pretty understandably upset about the genophage, but he was also very like reasonable and mature in understanding that the Krogan culture contributed a lot to that. Like he wasn't an idiot. I like how he's got the quads, I'll say, to stand up to Shepard when Shepard is doing something that he doesn't think is right, like with the whole Vermeer thing, where you have to like talk him down because, you know, he wants to use Saren's research to help cure the genophage, which is a completely reasonable thing from him, and then we were able to talk him down like, the way Saren's doing it is not right, dude. So he's got the quads to stand up to you, and he's not just like a Shepard dick rider or anything like that, but you know, if you do, he's not going to forget if you do right by him. So you help him find his family's ceremonial armor and stuff like that. And, you know, he's not going to ride your dick, like I just said, but he's going to remember that you did right by him and he's going to do right by you. And then I love how in Mass Effect 2, the first thing he says when he sees you is, Shepard, my friend. And like, he's kind of like a little bit more, just there in the background as a cameo in Mass Effect 2, which I still enjoyed to seeing, but Mass Effect 3 he comes back, and especially in the Citadel DLC, it was just so fucking awesome when he like dive bombed that shuttle and just killed all of the, I can't remember the enemy soldiers in the shuttle. That was so badass. And then, you know, everything involving him wanting a better future for his people and leading the Krogan in a better place. He wants a cure for the genophage, but he understands that the Krogan culture has to change first. And I don't know, he just seems like he's going to be a great leader for the Krogan people. He respects Morden, even though I think he still has a lot of deep down dislike for the Solarians, for, like I said, reasonable reasons. But even then, he still understands that at the end of the day, they're individuals, and Morden is a bro, sacrificed his life, wants to name his, you know, one of his children after Morden, stuff like that. Just really, really beautiful stuff to see. And yeah, I think he just is an easy S tier. And then, as another S tier, we got Garrus, who, like I said, I admit, I actually thought was kind of boring in the first game. He, kind of like how I praised Rex for not just being a Shepard dick rider, Garrus was very much seemed like just a Shepard dick rider. His whole personality in Mass Effect 1 was kind of just like, I don't like playing by the rules of CSEC, so I want to go and do things my way, so I'm going to join up with you because you're a Spectre. And that's kind of all you get out of him. There's a little bit of interesting stuff with, oh god, what was his name? Dr. Salion, I think, with the guy who was growing organs inside of people. Like, that stuff was kind of cool and stuff with him. But even he probably would have been a B tier character if this was just Mass Effect 1. But Mass Effect 2 and 3 developed his character a whole lot, especially Mass Effect 2. I love how he has his, I guess, Punisher arc. You know, he tried to have a squad, and then they got all betrayed and killed. And he has a lot of personal weight, and he holds a lot of personal responsibility from that, and has a lot of pain and guilt and doubt with himself as a leader over that. And I love how you kind of discover that through the games. And so it just feels so appropriate to let him be the leader of Squad B and prove himself, not just to you, but prove himself to himself again. You know, kind of Mass Effect 3, he's just like, he's the homie, he's the dude, he's got your back no matter what. And not much to say to him. Like, he still kind of is a Shepard dick rider, but like I don't know, he's just like, he's your bro. It's really nice to have someone that you know has got your back no matter what. And I heard that even that his romance is quite excellent if you play Femship, so I'm gonna have to give that a try and, you know, see how, you know, see if I think he can get even better. But, you know, for now, yeah, I think he's a solid S tier. Then, you know, next we got Tali, which, you know, I chose to romance her, so you might be surprised I'm not putting her S tier, but I'm just gonna put her in A tier. She's great, but I don't think she quite reaches the level that is required for S tier. I'm quite glad I romanced her, though, especially because I watched a video. It was Jennifer Hale and Mark Meir talking about their favorite lines. Pathos sent this to me after stream yesterday, so, you know, I'd already beaten the game and whatever. But I learned an interesting bit of trivia where apparently Mark Meir's wife did some of the demo voice lines for Tali. Like, she obviously didn't voice Tali in the version of the game, but like, I guess did some demo voice stuff for like the sex moan sounds during their romance scene, which is the funniest shit in the fucking world to me, and it just makes me that much more happy that I decided to romance Tali at first. But yeah, no, Tali's great. Solid A tier. I don't think she quite gets S tier, but you know, another character that is with you through all 3 games, which is an automatic, like, you know, step up. And she also develops quite a lot in terms of someone who is essentially, I guess, I don't know, buys into the whole like Quarian, you know, history book things where they're teaching about how horrible the Geth are, and the Geth rose up against the Quarians and all that kind of stuff. But then, you know, through learning Legion and stuff like that, like, she might not trust the Geth entirely, but she definitely trusts Legion. And that moment when Legion is like, does this unit have a soul? And Tali, of all people, was the one that answered yes. That was beautiful. So, and yeah, just, I don't know, her romance scenes were super cute. She's just, I don't know, her voice does stuff to me. I think that her voice actress, like that exotic accent, I don't know, just did stuff to me. So I think that's why I chose her at first to romance. But I don't know, a lot of her scenes were super cute. She just seems like, you know, super nervous and stuff with Shepard at first. And I think it's hilarious how much she's like, you know, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember the exact thing. Something about like, you know, doing having to take all those antibiotics and all sorts of stuff to help her immune system before we, you know, integrated with her. And then afterwards, she's like, "Oh yeah, I got a fever. I'm super sick, but it was totally worth it." That shit cracked me up. And then drunk Tally is like the funniest thing. The emergency induction port scene, just excellent. So yeah, I don't think she's quite on the level of like S, you know, I'm repeating myself a lot. So not quite S tier, but solid A tier. And then Liara, we got Liara next. Honestly, I think she's going to be B tier as well. I've heard that like if you romance her, she gets a lot better, but in terms of at least my experience with her, in Mass Effect 1, I thought she was just eh. She comes on to you really strong, which I didn't really like. But I guess like the reason why makes sense. She's been, you know, in Prothean dig sites for 50 years of her life and has no social skills. And even then, like Asari, I guess social standards are different than humans anyway, so she just seems awkward. And I get that, and it makes sense, but I don't know, I didn't like how strong she came on you at first. In Mass Effect 2, she's pretty interesting. She's, you know, I love how in the, you know, in between the scenes, she's the one that recovered your body and, you know, kept it from the Shadow Broker and stuff like that. And it's super cool how she becomes the new Shadow Broker. This, you know, shy, timid, socially awkward archaeologist becomes like the most powerful information broker in the world, in the galaxy, not the world, which is really cool and a pretty interesting development to her character. But still, most of the time, outside of the Shadow Broker DLC itself, Liara doesn't really do anything in Mass Effect 2. And then Mass Effect 3, I don't know, I felt like most of the time I didn't have that many interesting things to say to her compared to a lot of other squad mates. It was mostly like every time I went to her room, she's talking to someone else, and that was an interesting conversation, or she's talking to Glyph, which, you know, to be fair, was an interesting conversation, or I see something on her terminal, which was pretty interesting. But a lot of times her interactions in 3 seem to be carried by whoever she was interacting with. Like, I loved her interactions with Javik, but, like, I don't know. I didn't get that much out of her. Like, I always felt like I was disappointed with what I could talk to her about compared to a lot of the other squad mates in Mass Effect 3. So, unfortunately, she stays in B tier for now. And like I said, maybe seeing what her romance is like. And I feel like if I brought... I regret doing the Novaria stuff in Mass Effect 1 before finding her, because I feel like this could be different. I feel like I might have higher thoughts of her if I brought her to Novaria to confront her mother and stuff like that. That seems like I missed out quite a bit on that. But anyway, yeah, for now she's in B tier. And Jacob Taylor next. He's pretty meh. I'll give him C tier. He'd probably go in D tier if I tried romancing him as FemShep, because I did hear about how he cheats on FemShep, which is pretty shitty. But at least from my experience, I don't dislike him. I think his loyalty mission Mass Effect 2 is actually quite great. The whole stuff with how fucked up his father is and the horrible shit he did. And, you know, I really like how Jacob is, you know, doesn't like that and is like, fuck you, Dad. You're a piece of shit. He's a good guy at heart, it seems, and he wants to do the right thing. But I don't know, he kind of suffers a little bit from just the boring human syndrome that I think a lot of the human characters have, except for Jack, which we'll get to. But I don't know, when you're surrounded by these, you know, exotic creatures, I think it's natural to be drawn to them and want to get to know them. And the normal humans that we all interact with all the time, just, I don't know. I think they fall into the wayside a little bit. But yeah, you know, he's C tier. I don't hate him, but I don't love him. He's pretty mad at me. And then we got Miranda. I'm gonna put her in B tier above Kaidan. I think she's pretty damn solid. I kind of like how she is essentially starts off as like Ice Queen, Cerberus Dick Rider, and then, you know, you kind of crack away her layers and learn that she's actually quite a nice person who has a pretty messed up family history and really cares about her sister, and she has a horrible dad and just, you know, just wants to protect her sister. And I think that's really cool. And I love how after, you know, the Elusive Man pulls the stunt he did with wanting to keep the collector base, she's kind of like, oh, you know, maybe Cerberus isn't all it cracked up to be. So she's got some pretty good character development there. But, you know, I never really felt too compelled to use her over like a lot of other characters, or get to know her more than a lot of other characters. And on to Zaid. I'm gonna put him in C tier as well. He's pretty meh, especially when you compare him. Come on, yeah, there we go. I want to put him over Jacob. He's pretty meh, especially when you compare him to Kasumi, who I think is a far better. You know, if you just compare like the Mass Effect 2 DLC characters, I think Kasumi is far better, has far more personality. I don't dislike Zaid though. I think his loyalty quest is like the most boring out of all of the loyalty quests in Mass Effect 2 though. Again, especially when you compare it to Kasumi, that had a really interesting, you know, party crashing infiltration plot line. And then Zaid is just a straightforward go in and shoot people and kill people, and there's like one moral choice about like, do you want to just sacrifice all the people in order to kill his target? And then even if you don't do what he wants, he'll still be loyal to you as long as you have enough Paragon. I don't know. It just was like, that one was super boring and lame to me. I like his development in the Mass Effect 3, the Citadel DLC. That shit was pretty funny. Turns out he's super flirty when he gets drunk, and his little thing with trying to do the claw gotcha machine was pretty funny, and getting super frustrated that he couldn't win it. But yeah, overall, he's just a pretty meh character. And Mordin is next. Obvious, no question about it. Get out of here, Rex. Mordin is easily S tier. Like, holy crap, might be the best character in the game, in the series. Holy shit, what a layered character. Modified the genophage, feels like it was the right choice, but he still has like personal demons and regrets over it. And then I've this is a little bit cheating because I have, like, most of these characters are just like my experience with them in my playthrough, but I have watched someone else do that scene now where they destroyed Malin's research in Mass Effect 2, and then they thought that curing the genophage was overall a bad idea, and then they like tried to like stop Mordin from doing all this stuff and like from curing it in Mass Effect 3, and Mordin yells out, "I made a mistake!" when you know, Shepard tries to convince him, like, weren't you all for destroying Malin's data? Weren't you all for, didn't you say that like the genophage modification was the right thing to do? And he just yells out, "I made a mistake!" It's like, oh my god, that just hits so hard coming from Mordin, who really doesn't show a lot of anger, and he just like yells at you like that. And his you know, Scientist Solarian song was excellent. That was one of the highlights of Mass Effect 2. His loyalty mission is up there as one of the best in terms of just the layers with him and Malin and their research on the genophage in general. And yeah, I mean, fuck, holy crap. Even though I got it spoiled, the death scene hit me so hard. You know, like, Legion's I cried at, Anderson's I cried at, Thane I teared up a little bit at. But, like, I didn't tear up at Mordin's because I knew it was coming, but no other character just got me thinking after I turned off the game for as long as he did. I was legit constantly thinking about his story and his life and his death for like a full 24-hour period after it happened. It weighed on my mind so much. And yeah, you know, a character that's able to do that to you deserves no less than S tier. What's up, Unclouded? Had to be me. Someone else might have gotten it wrong. Yeah. Oh, God. You study those seashells, friend. Study those seashells up in Solarian heaven. Then let's move on to Kasumi. I'm gonna say she's a solid B tier. A little bit under Miranda, above Kaidan. I like Kasumi. She's really playful. I love how she's always so much more interesting to talk to than Zaid on the ship, because Zaid just is like, "Here's how I killed a Krogan, super badass, and I ripped his plate off and shoved a knife in there, blah blah." But I love how Kasumi's like talking about, you know, whatever romantic interest you're in, or just talking about gossip on the ship and stuff like that. I don't know. She's always more fun to play with. Or talk with. That's what I meant. Her interactions in the party were hilarious, where she's just invisibly hiding and like, oh, look at Shepard's underwear, or, oh, I'm in the bathroom occupied, stuff like that. I wonder if there's like, if I was able to get Jacob into the party, I wonder if they would have any interactions, because I know Kasumi had a huge crush on Jacob. But anyway, her Mass Effect 2 loyalty mission is so much. I don't want to only compare her to Zaid, but it's hard not to, since they're the two DLC characters. But like, considering that she is a DLC character, her loyalty mission is actually like one of my favorites in the game. I love the whole like Donovan Hawk's voice is a little weird, like that accent, I don't know, but I really like the whole party infiltration thing. I don't know, it was such a unique and interesting loyalty mission. I like Kasumi. She's fun. Morton singing part of Amazing Grace posthumously destroys you emotionally every time you hear it. Yeah, that part. Yeah, that's another thing to mention about Morton. His little posthumous, like, here, let me leave you some stuff, Shepard, for like a memento kind of stuff that you could see at the DLC. That hit hard. Grunt. I'm gonna say Grunt is top of B tier. I thought I would put him. I thought at first I'd put him at A tier, but thinking on it more, I love Grunt. I think he's great, but he just doesn't have a whole lot of like. I don't know. Actually, I think I will put him at A tier. Now that I'm thinking about it again, he does have actually a lot of development. He starts off as just a rage monster. He's got whatever tank imprints that Okir left him that just makes him want to just be a murder machine. And I love how Shepard can, give him a purpose in life and give him a purpose on what to fight for, and he grows into a, his own squad leader. He grows into a proper, or he earns a proper spot in the Urdnot clan. I love how, we're able to basically. I make jokes about how he's our son, but he kind of is. He's like our adopted son. We just like teach him how to go about life, and that not everything is, not everything has to be like Okir tried to imprint on you to just be like the perfect Krogan of like just killing everything. We essentially teach him, humanity, which sounds weird to say, but like not humanity as in like human specific, but just like how to care about things other than just killing something in front of you, which is really nice to see. And I already said it, but like, man, hearing him at the end of Mass Effect 3 be like, for one, his laugh always cracks me up. I fucking love his like that's just that always gets me every time. That's so fucking funny. But hearing him just tell Shepard, thanks for getting me out of that tank, was so beautiful. Just like, essentially, hey, thank you, Shepard, I'm alive because of you. I don't know, that hit me hard. So I think now, now that I'm thinking about it, I do think he deserves A tier. He's not quite S tier, but he's A tier for me. And then Jack, I think Jack also deserves A tier. I'm going to put her at the top of A tier because Jack is so interesting, and I heard that it gets even better if you pursue a romance with her. But even without that, just her history in terms of growing up and essentially just having her whole life ruined by, Cerberus and the researchers who raised her. And like, oh my god, when you read about her, like in the Shadow Broker DLC, about how her mother was lied to, that Jack was like, born with a horrible deformity, and like, oh, you don't want to see her, trust me, can we keep her to make sure this doesn't happen and stuff like that. And the mother agreed, and then it was just all a lie to just keep Jack and abduct her to run experiments on. That was just, that was so fucked up. And so like her anger at the world is just feels completely justified, and her distrust of everyone feels really justified, because essentially everyone throughout her life has just used and abused her, and is really sad to see. But then throughout Mass Effect 2, we can kind of like open up that little bridge of trust and It really doesn't come around until Mass Effect 3 when you find her on Grissom Academy, and she's actually has turned her life around, and she's a little bit similar to Grunt, where before all she just wanted to do was destroy things and kill people. And then, it happens a lot off screen, but, I'm sure the events of Mass Effect 2 and doing that suicide mission with you really gave her new perspective and like, hey, I could use my talents for good. And then she has her own students that she actually cares about, like family. And I love how she, is like, she's still like a hardcore badass. She's still Jack, but I don't know. She talks about her students as if they're her children, and she's like, I'm not gonna let anything happen to them. Stuff like, I don't know. It's just really beautiful to see her growth and stuff into someone who actually like turns her power into, some a productive means. And yeah, I don't know, she's great. Solid A tier even without going into the romance stuff with her. Tragic story, sympathetic background, sympathetic attitude, and then is able to develop into someone who still has a lot of anger issues and stuff, but can put them towards something productive. It's great to see. Thane, I think I'm going to put at the top of B tier. He doesn't quite get A tier for me, but I really like Thane. It's always cool. He's our first Drell that we meet or even hear of. I don't think I remember hearing about any Drell in Mass Effect 1. So it's always like immediately interesting hearing about a new species and getting to learn about them. And just everything about his stuff with Kolyat and his quotes about like when he told Kolyat like, I've taken a lot of bad things out of this world and you're the only good thing I brought into it. Man, that hit hard. And then yeah, his death was super emotional. Honestly, like I saw his death coming even right after he got stabbed. So like the actual funeral or the actual like scene with him dying in the hospital didn't hit me as hard as the first conversation we have with him in the hospital, where he's just talking about like how he doesn't have long left. That one hit me even harder. Still, I don't know, we just don't have quite enough time with him like we do with all these other characters, Jenkins not included. And we don't see a lot of his development happens before we even meet him. Like he's already decided that he wants to try and keep Kolyat out of this. He's already, I don't know, he doesn't develop that much with us. So it kind of drops him down a little bit, but top of B tier I think is pretty solid for him. I really like Thane. Samara, I don't know, Samara I think I'm gonna put top of C tier. Again, I like Samara, but we don't get that much with her. Again, she's also one that like all of her development happens like before we even get there. She's like just fully locked into the code of the Justicars, and that's pretty much it. And it's super interesting, the lore with her and her family, and her daughters are Yashki, and I thought it was quite sad that she wants you to help you kill her daughter and stuff like that. She obviously doesn't necessarily want to, but she knows it's necessary. The whole lore with the Justicars and her following that code super strict is interesting, but I don't know, she's just kind of like the stoic like monk of the group that I never was really that interested in talking with. And in Mass Effect 3, I don't know, she's also like the least interesting person in the Citadel DLC, I feel. So it's like there was like, I don't know, potential for her to be like super interesting, but then every time I actually interacted with her I was just like, she's kind of boring. So I think top of C is pretty fair. I don't dislike her, but she never really did anything for me. And then Morinth, who I never actually got as a squad mate, but you can get as a squad mate because you can choose to kill Samara and side with Morinth, and she becomes your squad mate instead. Yeah, she's gonna go in D tier, partly because I never actually used her, so I don't feel like I can judge her, but also, I don't even have to use her as a squad mate. She's an evil bitch. She has no moral problems with killing people after she has sex with them. she does it to you if you allow yourself to sleep with her, I learned. And so she's just like, I don't know, she just seems so irredeemable. Maybe, I don't know, maybe even more unlikely than Ashley. If you do save her and kill Samara, she ends up being like some amazing character. I don't know, but like, I don't know, I can't really see anything redeemable. Would you like spoilers on what happens to her if you choose her in Mass Effect 3? I think I already know. She becomes a, doesn't she become a Banshee or something like that? Or maybe she already was. I don't know. I don't mind spoilers. You can tell me. While you're typing that up, Legion, another S tier character, and this is where I really have a hard time deciding on whether or not I like Legion more than Morden. They are so neck and neck for me. I feel like Morden deserves top spot, but Legion is so excellent. I don't think I can understate how significant it was for me, how meeting Legion just changed my perspective on the Geth entirely. And there's all just sorts of little details surrounding him that are so beautiful, like in the Citadel, or not the Citadel, the Shadow Broker DLC. You read about him and his gamer profile, and I love the little detail. It's so good with him buying a charity edition of, I can't remember the game name, but like it was for like Eden Prime relief efforts. Like all the proceeds go to Eden Prime relief efforts, and he has no time playing the game, but he just bought it so he could support Eden Prime relief efforts because he feels bad that his people, the heretics of his people that he calls them, contributed to the destruction of Eden Prime. It's just, oh, it's so good. Yeah, she becomes a Banshee and you defeat her, and that's about it. Okay, yeah. I have read about that. Because when I found this tier list, I noticed this character, and I was like, who the heck is that? And I thought it had to have been Morinth, but I looked up, like, her to see if she ever wears that armor, and she does, and that's kind of when I learned about that, so. But yeah, back to Legion. Just all the little details that surrounding him, going into the Geth consensus and learning about all the Geth history was one of the highlights of Mass Effect 3 for me. And the fact that he understands that it's not all Quarians' faults as well. He wants peace with the Quarians. It's not like he's going and being like, oh, now that I see this, the Quarians suck and I want to kill them all. Like, he's still very much like pro-peace between the Geth and the Quarians. And he doesn't want to, he understands the Reapers are a threat, but he doesn't want to throw away, like him talking about, like, seeing, I can't remember what it was called, but whatever Reaper code allowed them to get, like, essentially full sentience and full independence. And he was looking at it and he's like, it's beautiful. In a machine that doesn't really have the concept of beauty like we do, calling something beautiful, just, I don't know, it hits different. And then, yeah, being willing to sacrifice himself to upload the independence to all of the Geth. Yeah, I don't know. Legion is the GOAT. I still think Morden is probably better by a little bit, just because we get the one thing that I think keeps Legion at a top spot for me is the fact that we didn't have that much time with him. Like, I got him fairly early, which I was then punished for because Kelly and everyone died. But yeah, you really get him at the end of Mass Effect 2. You don't get that much time with him. I wish I brought him along with Tally's loyalty mission. That would have been crazy. And it was, yeah, I don't know. I just wish we had more time with him. Even then, it just goes to show how strong of a character he is, that even though we do get so little time with him, and we really don't get that much time with him in Mass Effect 3 either. We meet him when we're doing the Priority Perseus Veil, and then he dies at the end of Priority Ranox, so it's like, we don't get a lot of time with him in either game, and yet he still leaves such a insanely strong impression on me. One thing you love about Legion, that he fundamentally debunks the Catalyst L's take that organic synthetics will always try to destroy each other. He single-handedly shows that doesn't have to happen. Oh, yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's something I was thinking to myself. I can't remember if I said it at the end, but I was thinking, like, we kind of disproved that because we helped the Geth and Quarians make peace. Though you can kind of see that, like, you can kind of make the argument that just because that happened with one piece, it doesn't mean it's gonna, there could be another species that does the same thing the Quarians do, so it's like I can still kind of see the Catalyst's take, but yeah, it's not like it's destined to happen. But yeah, either way, Legion, for how little screen time he gets, just leaves such a strong impression that he's like just about my favorite character, and Morden just beats him by a hair, and yeah, super strong. And James. I think I'm going to put James at like low B tier, probably a little lower than Liara. James is hurt a bit by the fact that we only get him in one game, though I think he leaves a really strong impression for the one game we get him. Caden and Miranda kind of grow a little bit stronger just because we are with them for longer. But James starts off as like way better than most of the other human characters do, just straight off the bat. He's got such a much more interesting personality. I love his little quirk of like giving everyone nicknames, being a little bit of a jokester to try to ease the tension in hard times. But he still has a lot of like, personal struggles and stuff, and especially his conversation between him and Garrus in like the cafeteria or whatever, where they're trying to one-up each other with like badass stories they have, and then they both realize like, yeah, we both have some things that we don't want to talk to, and they mutually respect that of each other too, because they're very like, insulting of each other, like in a kind of respectful kind of way, as much as insulting someone can be respectable. But like once they get to the stuff that they don't want to talk about, the sass kind of ends, and they're both just like, yeah, we'll just respect our decision not to talk about this stuff. Oh wait, let me read this. The problem is that issue comes back up because they keep harvesting. After Shepard broke his peace, is that supposed to be they or he fears about synthetic conflict is more irrelevant because it would only apply if another cycle and new synthetic start. You've already resolved the cycle's issue with that, though. You might have resolved one, but there's always going to be new people that will try to make new synthetics and then can mistreat them, or the synthetics can mistreat them, and vice versa. After Shepard broke his peace, the fear about synthetic conflict. I think it's a little naive to say, yeah, we solved the Geth and Quarian issue, so no other synthetic or synthetic/organic conflict is ever going to arise again. I agree that like the problem is exacerbated even more because of the harvesting cycle that they're doing, but I think it's a little naive to just be like, I don't know. First time perspective, you've played the game more than me, so you probably have a better perspective, but at least from my point of view, I do think it's a little naive to just think that like, yes, Shepard solved this one issue, and so there's never going to be any more like synthetic or organic conflict ever again. I get that. Your point is Shep proves that peace is possible if you work at it. Yeah, in that case, I agree. So in that case, I think, yeah, the Catalyst's take there is a little bit of an L. There's a big crossover with the Krogan issue. Yeah, and I think that the Krogan Solarian issue and the Geth Quarian issue are quite linked there. They both share a common theme of like, I don't know, not every the individuals aren't responsible for every action of everyone in their species or community or whatever, and you kind of got to judge individuals by individuals, and you can't judge an individual based on what other people in there. Yeah, they both play on that same theme. Everyone assumed during the Genophage would never work out for the best because they would always go to war, or could never work out for the best because they would always go to war. And then yeah, Rex kind of proves that. Your opinion is the Catalyst couldn't accept that after doing the Reaper stuff for so long, otherwise all its horror it did over the eons would be pointless. Yeah, but then that brings in like thoughts of like, is the Catalyst even like emotional like that? Is it, or is it purely a logical thinker? Is it like does it have the capability of regret like that? I don't know. I have no idea. This is something where I'm gonna have to replay the game and my thoughts on the catalyst and stuff. I'm still so unsure on like the catalyst and everything. I'd have to replay the game a couple more times to get a better perspective. I think there's a crossover between Catalyst and Morden's initial take on the genophage. Did a lot of simulations and projections scientifically. Yeah, I mean, you do make a good point there. That ignores that life is more complicated than that. Yeah. No, that is a good point. I never really thought of the connection between Morden and Catalyst before. I think that's a really good point. And it kind of makes me wonder in an alternate world if we could bring Morden up there with the Catalyst, what he would have to say. Anyway, I diverted from James because I realized that there was still chat coming in for Legion stuff. But yeah, now James, solid B tier, pretty low on the list because we just get time with most of these other characters. And in terms of Miranda and Kasumi and Thane, I just like their personality more. But yeah, James is really solid. And I think his dynamic with Cortez is just excellent, cream of the crop. And I was always more interested in using James than I was ever interested in using like Caden or Jet, or I even liked using, I never brought Miranda hardly ever to missions. Like Caden, Jacob, Miranda. I was always a lot more interested in bringing James to missions than those. Maybe he deserved a little bit higher. I think I like him a little bit more than Liara, which I hate to say, since Liara was there for all 3 games. But like, I don't know. I like James. He's pretty cool, and his whole like, you know, you basically being able to coach him into like joining N7 and stuff like that, is cool. And I can't remember exactly, but didn't he have something similar to Garrus, to where he essentially has deaths on his hand in like, you know, a squad thing, and he blames himself for that? Which, if that's the case, I can't remember exactly. I'm pretty sure there was something like that, but yeah, just more interesting stuff to his character. And then we got Javik, who I think I'm gonna put. This is really tough. I feel like on principle I want to put him high because he's the first. He's a living Prothean we get to meet. But like, I don't know. We don't get a lot of time with him, just in one game. And he's also kind of a dick most of it. I still think he deserves... I think he's above Miranda, but lower than Thane. He has so many profound quotes throughout the series. The whole stand in the ashes of a trillion dead souls and see if the ghosts answer, or see if the ghosts care. Ah, gosh, what was the exact quote? Stand in the ashes of a trillion dead souls and ask the ghosts if honor matters. The silence is your answer. That was an excellent... That's like S tier quote right there. And then just his whole, like I already said before, his whole conversation with him talking about the squad that he had to kill himself was really sad. The conversation we had with him on Earth, and him kind of like realizing that maybe just being like a nationalist species and trying to brute force our way through the galaxy isn't the best way to handle it. And I think Shepard's way of bringing the species together in cooperation is probably better. And he's like, I envy you. I now wish we could have done that in my cycle. It was just like super profound. He starts off as a dick and then kind of grows into someone who realizes maybe his whole way of thinking and his people's way of thinking was wrong, and that could have contributed a lot to the Reapers winning. Still, we don't get quite enough time with him to really justify me putting him any higher. ED is actually someone who I think is going to go in A tier. I'm shocked at how much I enjoyed Edie. For only having one game to shine, Javik had great character growth. Oh yeah, I totally agree, which is why he's quite high in the B tier. Edie, though, technically has 2 games to shine, because, you know, she's in Mass Effect 2, just without a body. And Mass Effect 2, she's pretty boring. Just she's a lot more just like full-on robotic AI. but that part, that like aspect of her is important for her character growth in Mass Effect 3 to matter even more, where she develops into gaining a lot more humanity, and she's learning a lot of stuff from Shepard about, how humans think, and that, similar to what you were saying, Pathos, about how the Catalyst and Morden were basically just trying to use raw data and make decisions on that. She kind of realizes, like, maybe raw data isn't the best. I'm trying to make these decisions, or I'm trying to come to these conclusions just based off of raw data, and it's confusing to me. So Shepard, give me your perspective, and then we give like a human answer, and it gives her a new perspective, and she's essentially constantly rewriting and changing her programming to humanize herself more. And at least specifically the ending I chose with the synthesis with organics and synthetics merging, and her outro. I love how they made the decision for her to narrate the outro, and where she said like she's essentially human because of Shepard. I thought that was really sweet. Joker's not on this list because I'm limiting this to strictly people we can use in the squad. But I love her and Joker bounce off so fucking well together. I love how Joker is immediately so distrusting of her because, it's his ship. He's the pilot. He doesn't want an AI telling him what to do. And the whole like, oh, I fractured my thumb on the mute button, but I think I made my point to like get her to shut up kind of thing. But then it kind of just like, and her calling him like Mr. Moreau all the time, but then it just slowly blossoms into like a friendship. It's like she's calling him Jeff. He's, being more friendly with her and like uncoupling her AI and stuff like that to give her more free will. Which, if I remember correctly, didn't that happen during the? I'm pretty sure that happened when the collectors attacked the Normandy and kidnapped everyone. But I can't remember off the top of my head. So that was decently. I guess that was about middle of my playthrough for Mass Effect 2. And then it just kind of blossoms into like a full-on romance between the two, which is in equal parts like pretty sweet writing and really fucking hilarious writing. Especially Shepard's comment about like, dude, you have Vrolik's disease. How are you gonna like bang a robot and stuff like that? That was so funny. Oh, and also like, I love how the initial interest that Joker had in Edie was just that she got a sexy new robot body. And he's just like, yeah, I want to make sure she stays in the captain's, or not the captain's, the helm with me, for no particular reason. You just got to make sure you're always an eye view. But then it like actually turned into like a genuine, like, he cares about her kind of thing. I don't know. Their whole relationship was super cute, and I love seeing it develop. But yeah, Edie specifically, since she's on the tier list, I was just like, I loved her character development between like, full on just like logic, Spock-like logic and data decision making robot to getting more and more human and like more and more free will, sympathetic kind of stuff throughout the game. And then technically, since these are squad mates for a single DLC, we got Arya and oh gosh, was it Nyreen? I think it's Nyreen, right? Yeah, Nyreen Kandros. So Arya, I'm gonna judge her just character in general because we only get her for a squad mate in one, like, fairly long to admit, but still just one DLC. But we know her for a long time since Mass Effect 2. I think she's like a solid C tier. She's pretty interesting in terms of just how like brutally, like how ruthless she is in ruling Omega. But I do like how throughout the course of the deal, I guess we don't really get to know her that much in Mass Effect 2. She's just the chick that sits on the couch and tells you what to do and has a scowl on her face the whole time. I like how throughout the course of the Omega DLC, though, depending on how what choices you make, you can kind of make her a little bit more or less ruthless, and a little bit more sympathetic, and we were able to kind of successfully do that. Again, I don't know the ins and outs of all the, things that could happen in that, but it definitely gave me the impression that if I made certain decisions, she would have, like, been, ready to just full on kill. Oh god, what was his name? I got a cough too. Just a sec. Oh my god, too much talking in a row. But yeah, I got the impression that, you know, she does different things depending on how much you're willing to indulge her ruthlessness or not. And I feel like if we indulged it a bunch, she probably would have just killed Oleg. Well, that was his name, right? Olev Petrovsky or something like that. He would have killed the Cerberus general immediately when we saw him, and instead of like leaving him for us to decide. So yeah, you know, pretty solid C tier. We don't get to know her that much, but you know what we do see, I like her. And then Irene, I like just a little bit more, but not that much more, because again, we barely know her. We just know her for one mission. She leaves a pretty strong impression at first with, you know, being the leader of the, oh gosh, what was it? Talon, being a pretty respectable leader as well, and then sacrificing herself to allow us to get inside of Afterlife, which that whole death sequence happened so fast I barely even knew what happened. It didn't really hit me that hard, which is why she's pretty C tier, but I don't know. I think C tier is pretty fair for two characters that we really only get to know for one mission. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that tier list. 4 S tier characters for a game. Yeah, I don't know. Just you can tell the writing. Most, I feel, game series would not have as many S tier characters, because I'm usually pretty picky. I'm pretty picky with who I give S tier. I know some people will just like give S tier to everything, but I feel like if you give S tier to too many things, it devalues what S tier is. So Mass Effect getting in as many S tier characters as it did, I think is pretty good. But yeah, that concludes just you know, short little thing I wanted to do for finishing up my thoughts on the trilogy and a tier list for the characters. And yeah, for the YouTube side, let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. Who would you put in whatever tier you want? Who's your favorite character? Who are your least favorite characters? I don't really care that much about spoilers. I obviously want to play the game through multiple times more to see more, you know, outcomes, but now that I've finished the trilogy, I'm not going to be super anal about like spoilers. So if you want to be like, oh, actually Ashley, if you save her and then do yada yada, she you know, becomes a really great character. Like if you want to add stuff like that in the comments, like further clarification on some stuff that I might have missed, just because I didn't get to it in my first playthrough or I made different choices, feel free to do that. I don't, you know, I'm not gonna be like, no, it's a spoiler now, because of, you know, I just wanted my first blind playthrough to be as genuine as possible. Now I don't care as much. So yeah, anyway, yeah, no point in doing the ending screen now. I basically did my outro. But yeah, thank you all for watching on Twitch, and thank anyone who might watch this on YouTube when it comes out. Super excited to see what the next Mass Effect game is going to be all about. I definitely think I don't know if I consider myself a mega fan yet, but fuck, this trilogy left a strong impression on me. I wouldn't be surprised if I consider it among my favorites of all time. So yeah, super excited to see what the future of Mass Effect will be about. As for next stream, I'm going to take a couple days off to kind of figure out what I want to play next. I got a couple ideas in mind. I definitely want to do something that's a little bit quicker and a little bit more chill, because as much as I love this game, holy crap is it intense, and it takes a long time. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye!